Hey, hello, and welcome to this episode of, you know it, Learn Everyday English, your roadway to English proficiency. Here in the living room again, I got a pretty neat setup. I got my cell phone on a tripod. I bought a special cell phone holder, and on top of that I can put a kind of portable light. So that's very small, it's only about this big. And I can light up the scene, although I do get some reflections in my glasses depending on at what angle I hold my head. But it works pretty well. It's small, compact, easy to use, and I also have a very small portable lapel microphone that I plug into my phone to get good audio. So making a video with a cell phone these days is a snap, as we say in English, or a piece of cake, which means it's very easy. I used to use my DSLR camera or my mirrorless camera, but using the cell phone, iPhone, just makes it so easy, and the quality is very good, so I'm really impressed with that. So before I jump into the topic today, there's 3 things you can do for me. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and 3, tell your friends about it so that they can benefit from these videos too, just like you. Okay, I'm going to talk about something that happened to me and say it finally happened. Yep, it finally happened to me. I thought I might have been immune because ever since COVID hit the scene, which it kind of began or came on board, or people started to get COVID. I've never had COVID, but it finally happened. I got COVID. I caught COVID. I got COVID. However you want to say it, it means the same thing. I came down with COVID. I caught COVID. I got COVID. And it was kind of a weird thing. I've been got all my shots. I've got 2 sets or 2 rounds of booster shots. I think the last one was in May, and then there is an updated or another booster that came out in the fall, maybe September, but I didn't get that because I decided to go ahead and get the flu shot and thought I'll get the COVID shot later because, I've never had COVID. So the probability or the odds of me getting COVID, I thought, it was pretty slim. That means narrow or not easy to happen. But I was wrong. Maybe I should have gotten the COVID booster instead of the flu shot, or maybe I should have gotten them both at the same time, but I didn't want to get the 2 shots together. So maybe once I get over this COVID, I'll go ahead and get the booster shot. But let me tell you kind of what happened to me. This be a good listening comprehension exercise for you. So in December, I went to meet my wife, who was in El Paso, Tejas, visiting her mom, who was kind of in the hospital and was very ill. So on December 24th, which is Christmas Eve, I flew out from Houston. I had to wait that long because, we have pets, a dog and a cat, and there's a lady that watches them while we're away, but she was on vacation and wasn't coming back until December 23rd. So I had to wait and leave on December 24th. And this was right during the big cold snap. You probably saw my video about that, the winterization video and the cold snap or cold spell video. And it was very cold here in Texas. I think it got down to like 13 or 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which may be like minus 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. And so I had to leave in that weather, and it was very cold. So I remember I drove over to the airport that Saturday morning, December 24th. Interesting thing happened. Usually I park, we say, in an outlying parking lot, which is a parking lot which is away from the main airport terminal. And I take a van, or we call it a shuttle bus, to the airport terminal. But this day, the entire lot, which is huge, very big, I don't know how many tens of thousands of cars this lot can hold. The lot was full, because when I drove up in my car, the lady asked me, "Well, sir, do you have a reservation?" I said, "Reservation? No, I've never had to make a reservation." She said, "Well, the lot is totally full. You can't park here unless you have a reservation. But I have this coupon, and you can park in the big parking lot that's right near in the terminal. And usually people don't park there, and I don't park there because it's much more expensive. To park in an outlying parking lot and take the shuttle costs like $7 or $8 a day. But if you park in the main parking lot near or in the terminal, it's like $25 a day." But she said, "I have a coupon here where you can park in the terminal parking lot at the same rate or the same price as you'll pay here at this outlying parking lot." So I said, "That's a deal. That's a deal. I'll drive right over there." So I went over there, parked. Took me a while. That parking garage, we say parking garage, was pretty full. I had to park at the very top level, the 8th level. And I went in and I checked my bags in, did all the travel stuff that you need to do at the airport to get checked in, and I walked to the terminal. But as soon as I walked into the terminal to get checked in, I noticed it was very cold inside the terminal. Like there was no heat on at all. So let me tell you, I was wearing a undershirt. I had a t-shirt. I had this thermal shirt. I had a flannel shirt like this. I had a warm-up jacket and a overcoat. And I was still kind of cold because by nature I'm cold-natured or cold-blooded by nature. I don't handle cold weather very well, maybe too because I'm very thin, but I get cold very easily. It's hard for me to warm up once I get cold. But I noticed in the terminal, it seemed like there was very little heat at all, so I was very cold. I even had a hat on. I brought some gloves. And so I checked in and I was walking to the gate where my plane was supposed to be. And on the way there, I stopped at a little store to get a bottle of water. And I noticed it was very cold there too on the way to the terminal or the way to the gate. And I was talking to the lady behind the counter, and she was complaining too. She said, "Boy, it's cold in here. We have to wear 3 or 4 coats or 3 or 4 layers of coats or jackets just to try to stay warm. They don't keep the heat on in here." And so then I said, "Well, I know that's right. I know that's right." I agreed with her, and then I walked to the gate, sat down, and in this area too, it was very cold. I was freezing. It seemed like they had no heat or very little heat. Like I said, outside temperatures were 13, 20 degrees. It was below freezing. So I remember I was sitting in this area, all these layers on, with my hat on, and I even had to put my gloves on at one point because I got so cold. Luckily, I brought some food to eat, and luckily I went to this little restaurant place and they had a microwave, and the guy behind the counter there was kind enough to heat my food up for me so I didn't have to eat cold food, which would have been just miserable. So I had to wait about 2.5 hours. I was just like a popsicle, we say. And then I got on the plane, and the plane, it seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of heat there either. So that was a 2-hour flight from Houston to El Paso. By the time I got to El Paso, I was like a popsicle, like I said. I was very cold. My wife picked me up, got in the truck. She had the heat on, which felt good, but I really didn't warm up that day until I got in bed and was able to get under the covers. And then in El Paso, the temperature was a little bit warmer, but not much. At night, it got down to around 30 degrees. In the day, it was like 50. Wasn't too bad. And my mother-in-law was in a nursing home, I guess going through rehab or rehabilitation to get her strength back. So we would go visit her every day. And we had to wear masks inside the nursing home because there's a lot of elderly people there, people that are sick or ill. And I remember I got there that Saturday. My wife and I were going to fly out that Wednesday. So I remember I woke up Tuesday morning and I said, man, my throat is a little bit scratchy, like, or my throat is a little bit sore, like I was about to have a sinus infection, which I just thought it was going to be a sinus infection because I had had those before in the past and it felt exactly the same. So I took some allergy nasal spray I brought with me, and I thought, okay, I'm going to knock it out, which means I'm going to get rid of it or kill whatever cold or sinus infection that I thought I was going to have. But it didn't really knock it out totally. So that whole day I felt, something was brewing, something was happening in my sinus area. But again, I just thought it was going to be a bad head cold or sinus infection. I didn't really have any fever or anything like that. But that night, Tuesday night, I remember my brother-in-law, his family were there, and I started to feel real kind of bad. I started getting pressure behind my eyes. I started getting, my neck started getting kind of sore and pressure, and I had like a little bit of a headache. And then I was sitting at the table and I started to feel kind of cold. I didn't have a fever, like I said. I just started to feel a little bit cold. So I went back in the bedroom to see if I could find some Tylenol to take for my headache. And man, what happened was I started shivering. Shivering is like shaking real bad, like if you get real cold, and I couldn't stop. And so I took some Tylenol. I said goodnight to everybody. I need to go and lie down in bed. I had my jacket on. I got in bed and I had 2 or 3 covers on top. And I was shaking, and that lasted for about maybe 20 minutes. And eventually I warmed up and felt much better, and the shaking, shivering never came back again after that. I don't know, it was kind of a freak thing, kind of unusual. That's what a freak thing means, because, it happened that one time and never again. But then I knew something was going on, and that night when we were in bed, my wife she went to bed like normal, but in the middle of the night, she started just sneezing. And I said, uh-oh, whatever maybe I have, she's got something too. And jokingly, I said this, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if we have COVID. But I thought it was just a joke, because still I thought I just had a bad sinus infection. So we get home that Wednesday, and we got back home that Wednesday, and we were both just feeling bad, feeling blah. Have you heard that word, blah, which means like not real good? And I knew something was going on, and I just had a lot of congestion, and my head was, stopped up. I couldn't breathe. My nose was stopped up. I had drainage with my sinuses. Again, I didn't have fever or anything like that, or shivers or chills. I felt kind of cold, but I think I took some Tylenol once, but I was just mainly taking nasal spray and some other stuff to help me breathe, because at night it was hard to breathe. Then I remember that Friday, my wife was getting worse and worse as well. And she started to get, sicker than I was. And I told her, well, I think we have some home COVID tests. let me take that just to see what's going on. So I got the test out and I took it, and mine came back positive, saying that I had COVID. She took the test, but I think the test was not accurate or messed up. We didn't have enough of the solution, and hers came back negative. But I told her, I don't think that's right. I think you have COVID. And then over the weekend, my symptoms were getting worse, more congestion, hard to breathe, and she was getting very bad. And then mine, by Sunday, started to kind of get a little bit better, but hers was getting worse. And by Monday, I was feeling much better, but she was feeling even worse because Sunday night she could hardly sleep because she was coughing so much. So that was another symptom that we have with this COVID, which is head cold, congestion, and coughing. So Monday she said, man, I feel so bad. Let's go to the urgent care clinic, and get checked out. So we both went and saw a nurse practitioner there. They did the COVID test and it came back for both of us positive. We both had positive COVID tests. So it was confirmed that we had COVID. So the person there told me, well, I think yours is on the down slope, which means like it was kind of clearing up, but my wife's was still getting worse. And so today is Saturday after that Monday. I still have a little bit of a cough, a little bit congestion, but that's probably 90%, 95% cleared up. My wife is feeling much better. She has a little bit of a cough, but hers is much better too. So thankfully, or thank God, it didn't get any more serious than it did. But I just tell you, I was doing some research online and reading about this new strain, of COVID. And here's some information I found about it. It's called the Kraken COVID. The Kraken is like a mythical sea monster from back in the day, and it was given this name by, I think, a doctor in Canada. It's called the Kraken. And it's in the U.S. and 28 countries now. It's called XBB.1.5. I don't know how or why they give it names like that. But in December, here in the United States, at the beginning of December, it only accounted for about 1% of COVID cases. But in 3 weeks toward the end of December, it made up about 41% of all COVID cases. So it shot up, we say, it increased dramatically here in the United States. And it gives you cold-like symptoms, like if you have a bad cold, like a runny nose, your nose is runny. You might have some chills, you might sore throat, body aches, cough, and congestion. These are the main symptoms. But you don't really have a fever or a high fever like you would have with the flu. So the symptoms are milder. Then I was just reading an article in a very popular paper here in the U.S. called USA Today. And they were talking about this strain of COVID, this XBB.1.5, and they said this: people who haven't had COVID will likely catch this strain of COVID, XBB.1.5, and many will get reinfected. So that was exactly my situation. I had never had COVID, and I got it. And they also said people that have it or get it will possibly or highly likely may get reinfected or infected again, because it is very contagious, very contagious. That means it spreads very rapidly and very easily. And it also said 80% of Americans who have already been infected are likely to catch COVID again. So and the article said that this strain of COVID is crazy infectious. Have you heard that word? Crazy used in this context. Here it means very, very infectious. So for example, I can say, boy, he's crazy good at playing the piano. He's crazy good. That means he's very good or very, very good. Or that car is crazy fast. It's crazy fast. It means it's very fast. So that's a new word for you, or usage of a word. But the good thing about this strain of COVID is that it is severe infections and death are very low probability you'll have anything serious. And to close, I'll give you some of the statistics with COVID here in the United States right now, according to USA Today. Between 2,500 and 3,000 people still die every week from COVID since September. That's a lot of people. And overall, nearly 1.1 million Americans have died officially. This is an official number. But the number of deaths from COVID in the U.S. is probably higher than that. But that's the official number. So that's my COVID story. And hopefully I don't have to repeat this incident of COVID again. But who knows? So let me know if COVID is a serious issue where you are in your country, or are the number of cases of COVID increasing? I know I read recently in China that COVID is just exploding, and I'm not sure why they can't seem to get that under control, but I read that the vaccine that they use may not be as effective as the other vaccines, and also a lot of the elderly in China aren't vaccinated at a high level as they are in other countries, and they're the people that are more prone to get sick. So, and then two, I guess close proximity, higher numbers, higher population, people living in close proximity is just a bad recipe for disaster. So we'll see what the future holds, but maybe we say COVID is here to stay like the flu, and maybe it's just something we're going to have to deal with every year. And they're going to have vaccines or booster shots every year for COVID like they do for the flu. So that's my COVID story. Let me know if you have your own COVID story. So hopefully you got something out of this video. Use it for listening comprehension, and you learned a little bit more about this new strain of COVID. So again, thanks for watching. Hey, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and 3, tell your friends. I think that's going to do it for me for today. And have a good week, rest of the week, wherever you are in this world. And thanks for watching this episode of Learn Everyday English. We'll talk to you later. Hey, goodbye.